So, Gauteng Police Commissioner Tommy Mthombeni says law enforcement agencies are ready to ensure safety and maintain order when South Africans take to the polls on the 29th of May. Over nearly 3,000 voting stations in the province are expecting a high number of voters. More than 100 of them, 160 in fact, have been categorized as high risk. But let's now speak to Chairperson of Legislature's Portfolio Committee on Community Safety, Dr. Bandile Masuku. Dr. Masuku, good morning to you, and thank you so much for joining us. There really is so much to talk about as we edge closer and closer to those all-important elections. The number right now is 168 voting stations in the province that are considered to be high risk. That's quite a considerable number. What do you make of that, and do you think it is a fair assessment?
Good morning, and good morning to your viewers, and thanks for having us on your show. Yes, it is a fair assessment. And the number of those voting stations that have been mentioned are the voting stations that are located in areas where crime has been a big problem, around it. The threat, the risk analysis and the threats that were analyzed, did identify that those areas where crime, particularly your gang violence and your illegal mining, are rife, are actually the areas where there should be higher alert and be more cautious around there.
And are you satisfied with what you've heard from the Gauteng Police Commissioner Tommy Mthombeni, essentially around the readiness of law enforcement for this all-important election, that where the stakes are so high?
We are satisfied and quite confident, in particular, that it's not only going to be the police that are actually involved, but it's also going to involve all the other stakeholders, all the other law enforcers or people that play a role in law enforcement will be involved, and they will be integrated into the plan, including the South African National Defence Force, which is something that I think all the citizens keep calling on them to come onto board to make sure that they actually protect and protect the citizens.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the SANDF as one of the role players that will be very active on the day of those elections, and certainly, I suppose, in the days afterwards, that close watch very, very necessary. But then at the same time, you've also got the 350 private security companies that also will be assisting across the country. I imagine a large bulk of them also working in Gauteng. I mean, when we've got private security also working to assist police, is there a concern that we do not have within government sufficient capacity to deal with whatever may come in the upcoming elections?
No, I don't think it's about the elections on its own, but I think what we have appreciated as a committee, it's that we need more people in different categories of law enforcement to be part of just protecting the citizens, not only the elections, but just part of the protecting of the citizens. And private security have played a role, and we in the past have made it a point that we also try and understand and regulate their activity. But they are part and parcel of this important project of protecting the elections and its integrity, and particularly in relation to stationary security.
Yeah. Also, and I think it would be a miss of us not to also look at this today. The appearance of the MK Party alongside the IEC at the Constitutional Court, depending on what the outcome of those proceedings may be, are there concerns for instability and violence as a result of those proceedings?
It's one category of the threats in terms of the risk analysis that was done, that all the law enforcement should be focusing on, particularly the public order, actually policing, and also our own crime prevention wardens in terms of monitoring and actually visibility. So it's one of the categories of the risk analysis that we've done. The protest actions and some violence or public disorder that might arise, not only today but also during the actual election date.
Yeah, and I think the reason why I have to ask around the proceedings taking place in the Constitutional Court today, where the former President Jacob Zuma is involved, is because we hope that we've learned the lesson from July 2021. When the Apex Court essentially ruled that the former president was in contempt of court, that leading to the loss of over 300 lives and a massive cost to our economy, massive riots across the country. So let's talk about if we are satisfied with the intelligence that we are receiving in the run-up, not just to this that is supposed to come out of the Concord today, but in the run-up to the elections as well.
We are quite confident that, our law enforcers, our police and particularly the army are actually ready. I think the lessons learned from the July protest have helped the police and the law enforcers to be able to be well prepared. And I think it will be foolhardy if we do suffer the same consequences from the July protest. But we are quite confident with what they've presented to us, the number of the police officers that are deployed, the number of the other law enforcers, your private security, our patrollers, that on its own has given us confidence in how they've been able to categorize the threats and focusing on high risks, and also focusing on where there's a greater threat for a disruption.
So what's the priority? I mean, as the portfolio committee, as you look at the priority then for law enforcement, is it really needing to deal with the crowd control, for instance? I mean, what are the particular skills that you are certain that law enforcement certainly is going to need, particularly on election day?
I think there are different ways on how to look at it. We need to first make sure that people are able to access voting stations. We need to make sure that the ballot papers are actually protected, the boxes themselves, because the integrity of the election process actually also depends on it. And the third one is just to make sure that there's orderly flow of traffic and also of people into the voting stations, and also make sure that there's general visibility around our streets so that people can be able to freely walk or actually be protected as they go towards voting. So it's an important aspect that we have looked at. Even access to infrastructure, your basic sanitation is one of the other important things. We have actually looked at also the issue of the threats of the weather, and according to the predictions at the moment, we generally have a particular sense of how the weather would be, and the infrastructure, particularly the temporary voting stations where there are tents involved. Those are the areas and it's spaces that needs particular attention. But we are quite confident with everything that was reported and given and presented to us.
Yeah, well, we also hope that South Africans are willing to be active citizens on the 29th of May to report any issues that need to be reported. And perhaps you can talk about how we go about doing so. And I wonder if you are at all at liberty to tell us which are some of the high-risk stations and the sort of aid that government then needs.
Yeah, I think, I am at liberty. It's general knowledge that, the VDs of voting stations which are located in areas which are known or get accustomed to be related with activities like gang violence, and areas where they've categorized the issues around illegal mining, where these activities have been rife in the past. And these are the areas that are the ones that require special attention. And the work has already been done so far. The assessment, the scanning of the environment, and the preparations are quite afloat to make sure that the voting stations in those areas are actually protected. But there's also an element that came around and arose actually during the voting registration, which relates to service delivery related matters. We are quite happy at the moment that the threat of load shedding at the moment is still not very high, but it's something that we are actually looking at the level of service delivery issues.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for speaking to us. We really, really do appreciate it. Dr. Bandile Masuku there is, of course, with the Portfolio Committee on Community Safety here in Gauteng.